Now we're finished. Dibur Tachtenim is finished. But now the Alter Rebbe asks the question backwards. We have a contradiction. For the first 34 parakim of Tanya, every time the Alter Rebbe mentioned Teda, like a machine, Keneged Kulam, Teda is the greatest of all. All of a sudden we get to Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin. We shift emphasis from what the Jew wants to what God wants. It's not about getting close to the Eibishter, like Biyal Amalsa, Nefesh Alaguf Maila Maila, but rather to be Mamshech Liachad Kodesh Bricho Shchinte Betachtenim, to bring Hashem down. All of a sudden we made emphasis on Maise, so resolve it. So the Rebbe is going to say there's Maidin Dika Milas and Teda, there's Maidin Dika Milas and Asiya, but they're different Milas. Okay? And the Nekuda is, the Mile of Teda is it brings on a Gavaldika Oyer. And the mile of mitzvah is that it brings it down gevaldik low. So now the Alter Rebbe goes back to Teda. Now that we spent 3 prakim on Dira B'Tachtenim, we say, what about Teda? This is the Gemara, the Mishnah says. The Talmud Teda, you can get called the Teda is equal to all the mitzvahs. So the Alter Rebbe is going to say a number of inyanim, a number of milas and Teda. Number 1, the answer is because there are milas and Teda over mitzvahs. First of all, Talmud Teda with dibur machshav. Teda you do with speech and more importantly with thought. Which is the inner garments of the animal soul. Now notice that Alter Rebbe is admitting that Teda also has animal soul, which in Perek Lamed he said no. Perek Lamed is only Nefesh Elikis. V'tzadachim. V'gam moreover, Mehusan v'atzmusan shotchinas Chabad meklipas negesh v'nefesh achayunis nichlales begedusha mamish b'sheisik b'Teda b'iyin v'seichel. When you learn Teda, since your Nefesh Bahamas is included, the intellect of your Nefesh Bahamas is included. So the essence of the intellect of the animal soul, which comes from Klippa, becomes Kedusha in learning Teda through Iyun, concentration, and Seichel means wisdom. So you're, besides for the fact that you're lifting yourself up to the Eibishter, you're mevader the Seichel of your Nefesh Bahamas. In Tanya Perek Ches, the Alter Rebbe said that what's wrong with Chacham Chitzeni is that you're metama the Seichel of your Nefesh Bahamas. And in Perek Lamed Zayin he says that Talmud Teda is mevader the Seichel of the Nefesh Bahamas. No mitzvah is mevader the Moyach as Talmud Teda is. So this is a Meridika because you're being mevader a higher madreg of Klippa, which is a Maile. It's not Dira B'Tachtenim so much, but it's dira b'pnimiyim more. You're being mevader. More pnimi is the inyan, the seich of the nefesh habahamis. Even though the emes is the muhus, the essence of the midas, the attributes of the emotions, the beinani cannot transform into kedusha in the midas. Right? What makes a beinani, not a tzaddik? That the behemoth is always alive. The taivas always exist. And where are taivas? Taivas are in the lev. Says the Rabbi Mishum. The answer is Sharach Chazak Yeseh b'midas mi b'Chabad. Chabad is Eidel Ra, and Chagas is coarser Ra. Now, the truth of the matter is Eidel Ra is worse than coarser Ra. If you're an Eidel person, if you're a good person, you don't even notice the problem with Eidel Ra. So the midas of Nefesh Bahamas are lower than the Seichel of Nefesh Bahamas, but it's easy to be mevader the Seichel of the Nefesh Bahamas. In other words, a person can be a bein, but he hates how that he's fighting with, and nevertheless, his brain has been fixed by preoccupation with trying to understand Hashem's Heilig Ketei, and that's his reality. There's more flow in the heart than there is in the mind from Kedusha, and therefore, ironically, it's harder to be mevader the midas than to be mevader the meichel. Now, this is, of course, in stark contrast to what people learn in the Maimer al Totzeres Meir that they've ever repeated 1,000 times, and you guys have it in the Vayishlach Yeshua, that you cannot be mevader the meichel b'chlal. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu said to conquer 7 nations, which go on 7 midas, but Keinik needed to look at money. You cannot be mevader till Yossi Love. Right? Here, the Alter Rebbe says, "Punkt verkehrt." It's easier to fix the behemoth of your the mind of your behemoth than the heart of your behemoth. And tzarich here, you have a kash. And I'm sure there's a teretz. It's not for now. So the first mile of Teda over mitzvahs is the beater of the mayach of the nefesh habahamis. It's not a mile of dira b'tachtenim, but it's a mile of a beater of bringing a to a more pnimistic level of behemoth. Zay for eid acheres. And there's a second mile in Talmud Teda. V'yei al kulam. This is greater than the first mile. Then the beat of the meichin, but milas eisek Talmud Teda al kol mitzvahs, learn Teda of all the mitzvahs, and that is that to use the lashon that we're all familiar with, that mitzvahs are compared to candles, and Teda is oid, it's the whole fire. There's 248 individual candles. There's one torch. Teda is one etzem, correct? Teda is one etzem, and there's 248 mitzvahs. That's why it says in Chazal, Aveda Machaber Mitzvah. Hanem Monad the Rabban and the Bolu. Mitzvahs can become a das. Teda as a leiked vareke eish mash einu makabelas tuma after the Teda einu makabel tuma. There's no such thing as making Teda tummy. It's pure. It's godliness. So that why? Because it's a powerful light. This is again a Midanika Maila in Teira, but it's not a Birurim Maila. It's not a Tachtainim Maila, it's a Oir Maila. You follow? Zeis Veidacher is another Maila in Teira, Vihi Ha'el Al Kulana, it's above the other Mailas. The Mailas, Eisik, Talmud Teira, Kol HaMitzvah, the advantage of Teira of all the mitzvahs. Al Pi Mashakos Sil V'Shem HaTikkunim. Based on what we discussed before, that means Perek Chav Gimel in the name of the Zayah. The Zayah said over there two Zayahs. One Zayah was that a Mach Bikur and a Mach Avon the Malch. That mitzvahs are, quote, only, end quote, the limbs, the 248 limbs of the king. They're not the king's neshama, they're the king's guf. You're talking about the lakus. Just like in a human being, for example. You cannot compare it all. To the life of the 248 limbs. To the vitality, not of the limbs, but of the neshama and the brain. Which is the wisdom, the mind. Which is divided up into three bechinas. Chabad. Right? There's much, and by Teira we don't say Tlas bechinas Teira, Tlas meichen Chabad. We say Reiseva Kuchabricho Kulachad. Teira and the Eibishter are one. It's Shalai Be'erach. Mitzvah is only the limbs of the Eibishter. Teira is the Eibishter's Ein Sof. Says the Rebbe. Okay, Kocha Mamash Derech Moshe. The same is true in the Nimshal. That B'Rivaves have also in case it's an incomparable separation. But Adar said in Seiv Baruch in the revelation of the infinite light. HaMeslap is b'mitzvahs ma'is that are manifest in the behavior performance of mitzvahs. It's a much diminished, much smaller light. Like Gabi Adar said in Seiv Baruch in Sof, the revelation of the infinite light of Hashem. Shebechinas Chabad. In Chabad, which is in the wisdom of the Torah, each individual, according to his wisdom and according to his understanding. The seichel of a person has infinitely more light of the Eibush than learning Torah than the limbs of a person have light in the performance of mitzvahs, because Torah is a much higher light. Your understanding is only the physical dimension of the mitzvah, not the Eidin Sof of the mitzvah. So we had in Tanya Perek Dalet, Torah is compared to water. Which goes up from a high place to a low place. And the fact that you're only able to understand Torah at the Gashmizik level does not matter. The bottom line is that in Torah there's 8 Sof. So we spoke 2 milas of Torah over mitzvahs, but they're different milas. Number 1 is the bidder of the moyach of the nefesh habahamis, which is not done through mitzvahs. And number 2, Torah is poshet. That's what the din is. Misha Drasei Nasei. It's part of a mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are small lights. And Torah is the general light. But in terms of birurim of tachteinim, the bittul, the gufa, the nefesh habahamis, and your own gashmis and chalki be'elam, which is a carbon to the Eibishter, brings the Eibishter to the lowest level, and that's the mile of mitzvahs over Torah.